Kathleen Lorsbach picked up a new botanical vocabulary when she and husband Tom moved to Texas in 2007. Agaves were a first for her, since her gardening knowledge was rooted in Minnesota.
Both my grandmothers were avid gardeners, and as a little girl I was always helping them in the garden, and I just had such great memories of that. And then when I got my first house, I just started with gardening my own things with transplants and pieces from their gardens, and it just became a real hobby that I spent a lot of time on.
When she landed in Texas, Kathleen adapted her skills with enthusiasm for plants she'd never grown.
But I fell in love with the succulents, the agave and the cactus and all those things, and the rock formations. So when we built this house, there was just nothing here. You know, it was just a builder's lot with a few plants in the front. And so I took that opportunity to kind of start over and make it more of a Texas kind of a landscape.
Not every plant is native, but Kathleen chose the ones that can take the heat.
If things don't survive 1 year, they're gone. You know, I just don't try to baby them at all.
She defined each area with structural standouts and diversified textures.
But the color was key too, because that silvery blue color, the agaves started that, and then the rosemary with the blooms on those, and then the Texas Silverado sage, and then the Arizona cypress along the backside too. It's all that blue-green color. I sort of get into, I like a certain kind of a color and effect, and I kind of go overboard with it and just keep using, but maybe that helps with the symmetry a little bit.
While some gardeners curse their rocks, Kathleen treasures each one.
Well, I was just amazed that they were, you know, here. And then, like in the back, when we wanted to do some landscaping and build the pool, they sort of uncovered natural rock shelves where the rocks were protruding out of the ground. And that was just like an epiphany. I thought, this is fabulous, these rocks. I've got to make sure every single one of them that I can show. So they actually designed the pool to run along the rock ledge so that we didn't interfere with the rock ledge. And then there's an arm of rocks right jutting into what would normally be plain lawn. But again, I had them cut around the rocks so that we can see the rocks. And they're so neat too, because all the little fossilized holes, and you know that this whole area was underwater, you know, millions or hundreds of thousands of years ago. So it's interesting to see those things and know that all of this at one time was completely underwater. And that's kind of fun to remind ourselves of too when you see those rocks.
Native stones frame raised beds for cascading lantanas that attract nectaring wildlife. Knockout roses aren't native, but they perform like ones, flowering for months.
But they're so easy care, and they give some nice color. And they don't need to be sprayed. That's another one of my rules. I really don't want to deal with pesticides and herbicides and all of that. If the bugs get it to the point where they die, then that's the end of them. Back in Minnesota, you had to do what they call the Minnesota tip method. You had to actually dig the roses half up, tip them over, and mound the dirt over them, or they wouldn't make it through the winter. And you planted the bud union a good 4 or 5 inches below the soil level. And of course here you don't have to do any of that.
One plant from our Minnesota days has worked just fine.
One thing I was surprised at, some things do make it here that were in Minnesota, like the mums. I can't believe how well these mums do here and survive in the heat and lack of water. And they're real troopers, and that's a shocker. With the aphids and so forth on, I think it's a salvia, the blue ones this year, they got the aphids really badly, and I was spraying them down with water a lot, and then I just kind of gave up and thought, well, let's see what happens. And they were fine. You know, they made it through the season, so it didn't kill the plant. So I've learned that too. Some things just cycle through and the plants are okay.
Beyond the kitchen doors, she designed a Spanish courtyard as a dining room with views to the back and front gardens. A pergola supports a young native crossvine that soon will cover it with almost evergreen shade. Here, Kathleen, Tom, and her mom, Pat, relax after the day's work is done. Fragrant elfin thyme thrives in the gritty, rocky spot. Raised beds frame their dining room with subtle privacy. In front, she designed raised beds again to reduce the stiff Bermuda lawn with structural plants and friends for wildlife. Sadly, when she thought she was getting good soil, it turned out to be the dense red death type of sandy loam.
Now, when like an agave rots out because there's too much water, or I want to plant cactus, now what I'm going to do is plant it in decomposed granite or sand mixture. I'm going to do a little, when I replant things, I'm going to take that opportunity to dig down and expand the area a little bit and put better dirt in there for this specific plant that's going to live there.
Although she traded months of snow for months of brutal heat, Kathleen's already a confirmed Texan.
I like Texas, and I think there's something that infuses, the gardening and the architecture and all of it just sort of works together to be an environment for some reason that I just feel naturally attracted to. I just feel really at home here. And I like the plants, and I like the place, and I like the people.